Throughout time, roller coasters have come and gone. Only some become legends for their intensity and thrills. Each and every year, coaster fans like you venture to the parks, searching for that one special ride that stands out above the rest. You submitted your rankings, and now it's time to reveal the group of elite roller coasters that you have voted as the best of the best. COASTER-net Uncut is proud to present the 2025 Thrilling 32.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Thrilling 32. That's right, Danny Miller, Andy Barchak. We're back here for rounds 2 and 3 of the Thrilling 32 here. We figured we're going to speed this along here as people are riding new coasters for 2025 already. We're going to continue. Yeah, well, a few of them. The one up by you, I think, is open, right? Your dive coaster's open now, right? The Wrath of Rakshasa, is that what it's called?
That's true. That is open.
So
the Sandusky not looking too hot right now, but
no, in a couple weeks it seems here that maybe we'll have things open. But yes, we're back for the Thrilling 32, back for rounds 2 and 3. We're gonna do 2 rounds here. So we're gonna get down to our final 4 in both the wood and the steel brackets of the Thrilling 32. And then next time out, we're gonna do the final 4 and the championship, and then we'll get our top 50 list as well. So we're gonna close this out quickly here.
well, that's the goal.
Quickly.
Because if anything screams quickly on this 2025 Thrilling 32, it's us closing it out as quick as we can.
Well, you know, we're still the longest continuously running theme park and roller coaster poll in the industry. So we'll
And shockingly, this is the longest running Thrilling 32 we've ever had as well.
It is. Well, yeah, I mean, we finish it up by this time last year? Was it July?
Oh, for sure we did. For sure.
I don't even know.
We've always wrapped this up by about March or April.
Well, that's what we try to do, right? But that's okay. That's okay. So, all right. Shall we jump right into it? We had a couple surprises in our first round, a little bit ago. So, we'll see which surprise rides continue to move on. I guess we'll go through everything. Do you want to go through everything for the second round, and then we'll come back to the wood for the third round and do it that way?
I think so.
Okay. All right. Well, let's start with the Bill Cobb group. Our first matchup is Gold Striker from California's Great America going up against the Legend from Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana. Historically speaking, Legend has kind of been underranked, I think. Last year was number 20 to Gold Striker's number 6. So on paper, this one's kind of a mismatch. And at least looking at the voters, 83% of the folks here having Gold Striker moving on out of this side. So I don't know.
The other 14% had Shivering Timbers moving on.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because the way that the Qualtrics data gets spit out to us, we can see the percentages that people had for each, right? So, hold on, it's going haywire. What's going on?
Man.
Yes, some people did have here we go. Round 2, round 3. Yes. So yes, we had a couple people who picked Legend and a couple of people who picked Shivering Timbers. There was an even split between Legend and Shivering Timbers going on. But again, a majority of people picking Gold Striker here. So a couple of people are already wrong. But
happens sometimes.
Yeah, that's not news here, though. I guess it's not a big surprise that it is Gold Striker moving on here to the Elite 8, the first coaster in the Elite 8 over here on this side. So Gold Striker will take on the winner of our next matchup, and that is El Toro from Six Flags Great Adventure in New Jersey going up against Ghost Rider from Knott's Berry Farm in Buena Park, California. Some would say Ghost Rider was a little bit of an upset beating Boulder Dash. Last year, Ghost Rider was 12 and Boulder Dash was 8. So a little bit of an upset there. El Toro was 5 last year and has been, in that 4 or 5 range for a little bit now. So the question is, has Ghost Rider really leapt up that far? Has El Toro maybe dropped a little bit? Could you get a combination of Ghost Rider rising and El Toro falling where you actually have Ghost Rider winning this one? Most people say no. Again, about 80% of the people having El Toro. One lonely person selecting Boulder Dash, but a few other people selecting Ghost Rider to be the winner out of this side of this bracket. So, what are you thinking as far as an upset goes here?
Well, as much as I want Ghost Rider to win, and this program has made no secret,
And it
uh,
should win.
it should win. I think Ghost Rider is a great ride. I don't hate El Toro as much as you do. I think El Toro is a good ride too.
I don't
Um,
hate it.
well, I still think Ghost Rider though, um, is the better ride. At least on my rankings. Who cares about everyone else's? But I don't think that that's the general consensus, and I don't think that that's what's going to happen here. So I do think it's El Toro.
All right. Well, if you were a betting man, you would be correct. It is El Toro that continues to move on. So we will have Gold Striker from Six Flags Great America going up against El Toro from Six Flags Great Adventure. For That's in our Elite Eight matchup. The winner will go to the Final Four. Last year, El Toro was five, Gold Striker six. So another opportunity for people to decide between two rides that were next to each other in last year's rankings. We pointed out quite a bit in the first round how often that seemed to occur here in this
Yeah,
year's
yeah,
bracket.
yeah.
And
Shocking, right?
yet again, it seems to be occurring here. Um, all right, so shall we move on to the Schmeck group, where we have our first matchup here in the Elite Eight. That's the Raven from Holiday World going up against the Voyage from Holiday World. We've got an all Holiday World matchup here, and Andy, I'm sure it shocks you to the core that 100% of the submissions have Voyage going to the Elite Eight here. Are you surprised by that?
Zero. Yeah, there's no way. You could even see a path that Voyage does not win in this one. So I would say it's the Voyage as well.
And it is the Voyage moving on to the Elite Eight. No big surprise there. Thanks for playing the Raven. Better luck next year. Now, the next one here, we've got Wodan Timber Coaster
Hmm.
from Europa Park in Germany going up against the Phoenix from Knoebels in Elysburg, Pennsylvania. Last year, Wodan was sitting at number 15. Phoenix was at number 9. So not a terrible gap between the two. Believe it or not, nobody selecting Wodon to get to the
Hmm.
Elite Eight out of this group. Most of the people selecting Phoenix. A couple of people actually selected Rutsche, which did not even make it through the first round, and a couple of people also selected Ravine Flyer 2. Don't know what those folks were thinking. But Phoenix is the decided favorite here.
Yeah, and Phoenix is one of those because of other polls that, it's been ranked number one in other polls. Has done okay in this poll a lot of times.
Top 10. It's been
Yeah.
close to the top five a couple times.
But yeah, never in that top spot. And Wodan's always been that meandering in the middle. Just kind of living there. And really for a lot of coasters now, just to survive in the middle is actually kind of a big accomplishment in today's world. Maybe not so much in the wood world, but at least in the steel world. So I'm gonna say it's probably still Phoenix. Moving on.
It is Phoenix from Knoebels moving on here. So we will get a battle of the Voyage from Holiday World up against the Phoenix from Knoebels in our Elite Eight matchup later on in the show here. All right, so we've got half of our field decided for the Wood Elite Eight. Let's move over to the Vernon Keenan group. And our first matchup here is Wildfire from Kolmården over in Sweden, going up against Boardwalk Bullet from Kima Boardwalk in Texas. This another one. A lot of people going on the side of Wildfire here, which was last year's runner-up. Boardwalk Bullet has had respectable showings here. Was number 21 last year. Certainly not a bad showing at all, but 100% of the people on board with Wildfire here, making the Elite Eight, and I don't think that one shocks me too much. That side of the bracket was kind of weak, really.
Yeah, kind of easy to predict there. So I would agree. Wildfire, clearly the superior ride in this side of the bracket.
Sure, and it is Wildfire moving on to the Elite Eight. No big shock there. Now, I think this is
Hmm.
kind of the first matchup in the wood bracket where where we really have one that seems to be a little bit in doubt here. This side of the bracket was loaded with not I won't say top tier coasters, but kind of that next tier,
Yeah.
right? If you look at the four coasters that were in this group from last year, Mystic Timbers was 13, Renegade was 11, so we had Renegade. Well, that's what they were last year. Don't know what they are this year yet, but Renegade moved on between those two. So we know that Renegade is higher again this year. We don't know exactly by how much. And then last year, Coaster was actually number 10, and Balder was number 7. So far, if you look at this group of four based on last year's rankings, the first two matchups in this round followed last year's rankings. So if you're to carry that through, Renegade was 11 last year, Balder was actually number 7. If you follow that logic through, then it should be Balder moving on here. And that is what people have selected here. 71% of the people selecting Balder here. But here's something interesting. The other 29% selected Mystic Timbers. So
Oh.
everybody who correctly selected Renegade to win that first matchup against Mystic Timbers, none of them have it then beating Balder. The only people who have Balder losing this matchup are the people who picked Mystic Timbers to beat Renegade and already have that one wrong. So there's an interesting dichotomy with the cross section of the people who have this matchup. So everybody who has this matchup correctly predicted from the first round, nobody has Renegade winning. So if Renegade wins, this whole half of this region is destroying somebody.
Well, and it's interesting because out of this group, if you look at them, if I was just to look at them on paper, starting with these four rides, I would personally say, and I've said this before, I think Mystic Timbers is better than Renegade, and I think Balder probably better than all four of them combined. So I would have to
Yeah.
say that I think it's interesting that Renegade moved forward to begin with, as we discussed in the last show. Balder. Probably moves forward here, but Balder always suffers from the ridership thing. Like, have enough people gotten out there to ride it? Are they all ranking it the same way? Just
Right.
one person ranking it differently in a smaller ridership pool could have an impact on it. I do think that might be what's happening with Renegade here. I think Renegade's like the Cinderella here so far, like kind of like dancing into this round, beating Mystic Timbers. I like Renegade. I don't understand the love for it at this
Yeah.
point. Um, and maybe it's an issue of Balder dropping. Maybe it's an issue of Mystic Timbers dropping. Maybe it's an issue. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah.
But I would probably have to say Balder moves on. I'm gonna go with the people.
Okay. Well, Andy, we've got our first big upset here of this round. It's
Oh,
Renegade knocking off Balder and moving on to the Elite Eight. So nobody in the entire submission pool has that half of this region completely correct. Everyone's got at least one wrong. And most people have two. Well, everybody's got two wrong.
well, that's so like I don't know what's going on with that. That's kind of shocking. That's absolutely shocking to me because I think Renegade is a fine roller coaster.
Mm.
Um,
Balder's the
but
better route, trust me.
I think Baldur's the better ride, and nothing is drawing people to Valley Fair all of a sudden. Like how is Renegade like ahead of,
No, it's kind of curious, isn't it?
yeah, it's not like they open up a new ride where people are flooding into the park and like, oh, Renegade, cool, I rediscovered this one.
Mm.
Um, what the hell is going on there? Definitely the better logo, but
Yeah, what the hell is Lisa Bonnet
what the
anyways?
hell is Lisa? What does the hell is Renegade doing? But Renegade's here, I guess. Very, very interesting. Very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, definitely. So we'll see how Renegade continues to do here, moving on to face Wildfire in the next round. I have a feeling that's where Renegade's run is going to end, but but
I
we
have
will
a
see.
feeling you're correct.
All right, let's move on to the last group on the wood side of things here, the Bill group. Our first matchup is Megaphobia from Oakwood Theme Park in Wales going up against Troy from Toverland in the Netherlands. Now, I can't remember if this news or this rumor had been coming across when we did the first round, but now there's this rumor floating around that some like random jabroni out in Wales is trying to raise money to save Oakwood, which who knows? I haven't heard anything on that, but so that's interesting. So if you haven't ridden Megaphobia and you want to ride Megaphobia, hold out hope. Maybe something will happen. It'll still be around, but for now, we've got to decide between Megaphobia and Troy. Now this region, and you could probably predict this at least for this half of the bracket, just by looking at the four rides. Here's the split between on this half of the region for which ride was going to make it to the Elite Eight. Because all four of the rides, Goliath, Megaphobia, Troy, and Rampage, had at least a couple of people pick it to get to the Elite Eight. So 25% of the people actually selected Goliath to get to the Elite Eight.
They
Only
thought it was Goliath's year.
yeah, they thought it was Goliath's here. 21% selected Megaphobia, so actually less than the
Yeah.
amount of people that selected
That
Goliath.
doesn't shock me at all, though.
Yeah, 46% selecting Troy and 8% selecting Rampage.
That's
So,
shocking to me.
so
Rampage at 8% is actually the most shocking number you read to me.
well, and it's shocking to me considering how similar Rampage and Megaphobia are because they're nearly identical layouts.
Yeah, and how did like that? Yeah, that's weird to me that nobody selected. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, so between Troy and Megaphobia, we have 67%, so essentially two-thirds of the votes are still alive here for the Elite Eight. Now what's weird here is we have Troy sitting at number 16 from last year's ranking, and Megaphobia never really having a legitimate ranking because the rider pool has been so small. So it's kind of a wild card, right? You know, Troy's sitting right there on the Mendoza line. So, if you assume it doesn't change, is Megaphobia above or below it?
I have no idea. I have no idea between these two rides. Because Megaphobia has, I think, outperformed already. Um, and it's been this wild card, like we said, that we just don't know where it's going. And Troy's been this middle of the pack ride, and I honestly don't know. Like I don't think there's. I think this is the tough one. If you weren't picking Rampage, out of this group, then I don't know where you would go. I think it's a coin toss. Probably Troy is the safe money. Megaphobia is the wild card, right?
Yep. No, I think that's right because Megaphobia is a complete unknown. We haven't had one of these in the wood bracket in a long time.
No, no. Like rights don't just pop up in the wood bracket all of
Because
a
I
sudden.
mean, we have Texas Stingray, but Texas Stingray is a ride that universally agreed is not like a top of the line ride, whereas
No.
Megaphobia is one of those where it's like it could be in that next tier.
Is there anything like the only thing that I could see happening is if a big group of people start doing like an Asian trip or something and went to China or to T Express, or there
Yeah.
anything good things in Japan? I don't even know. That's the only other way that I think this happens.
Yeah,
Again,
I think so because we're not really building these big, awesome new wood coasters. We're kind of done with that.
well,
Um,
that's an interesting thought, isn't it?
well,
We've
that
seen
is
some
an
rumors that maybe we are. I don't know.
well, we will have to see how this goes here. All right, so moving on to the Elite Eight here is Troy from
Oh,
Toverland. So Megaphobia knocks off Goliath, does not make it any further. But welcome to the thrilling 32 Megaphobia. You've stated your claim, you've made your presence known, and it's Troy moving on
and
here to the
hopefully you don't get knocked out.
well. I sure hope not. It is that now that's a ride.
No,
Megaphobia.
that's a ride.
All right, let's finish up the wood second round here with Outlaw Run versus Lightning Rod. Again, another fun example. Outlaw Run last year 3, Lightning Rod 4.
Oh,
Amazing how
I
that
didn't even know it
seems
was that
to have
close.
happened yet again. Amazing how that seems to have happened, right? um, and Outlaw Run getting 71% of the votes in terms of which ride's going to make it to the Elite Eight. Lightning Rod getting 25%.
That does
Now,
not surprise me because I feel that Lightning Rod's luster is beginning to fade with all the renovations and all the every. I think people are kind of like, I'm done with it, and I haven't been on the new version. I went to Dollywood this past Christmas. I didn't have it in myself to ride the new version because I honestly I don't know if I want to spoil what I remember as a pretty
yeah, like the novelty's kind of worn off, right?
like it was a pretty great ride when I rode it the last time. And I don't know if I want to go ride what many have said is a lesser version of it.
Yeah.
I like my brother and my nephew went to go ride it. They liked it a lot, but they didn't like rave about it,
Not the
which
way people did 10 years ago when it opened.
no, and they're not coaster people either. Like my nephew's 7 and was like, oh yeah, it's a good ride. And coming off a lightning rod, your opinion should be a little bit different than
It,
that
it
was a
should be a
good.
little bit more than, oh yeah, that was a good ride.
Yeah, like
Should be a
when you're
little more than
raving
that.
more about Big Bear Mountain, like okay, there's there might be
There's a problem here.
there's a problem here all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if I will write it to be honest. I have no desire to go get another credit or anything like that. That has nothing to do with it. Um, you know, but I think the novelty's worn off. And I will keep it at the ranking I have in my own rankings because I
Yeah.
remember it the way it was, and I kind of don't want to spoil it. And if that makes any sense, I guess.
No,
So
I
I'm
think
gonna
that
go
makes
with
a lot of
Outlaw
sense.
here.
Yeah, it is Outlaw Run moving on to the Elite Eight here. So our Elite Eight matchup will be Troy from Toverland against Outlaw Run from Silver Dollar City. All right, so we have Troy and Megaphobia. That one was a little bit of a wild card, a little bit of an unknown. We had a big upset with Renegade knocking off Balder, but other than that, I think we went pretty chalky here in the wood bracket again.
Yeah, everything was pretty stable with what you would expect. Outside, and once again, it's those mid-tier rides that determine this competition too. At some point,
Yeah, I
um,
mean those picks ultimately, some of these might not factor into who actually wins the ranking, the number one ranking, but in terms of the bracket contest, these matchups are going to matter because there's people who had a lot of these wrong where 1 point, 2 points going to make the difference, I think.
yeah, for sure. And well, and that's the thing. And you wonder if people messing up so much evens out the playing field too. That because that's the other thing. If people all mess up and they mess up at the same rates, even though they're not messing up in the same way, they're all keeping pace with each other too. And unfortunately, we don't have those numbers done yet. So,
Right. Well, yes, or do we?
well,
Um
I don't know now. So,
no, you don't. You definitely don't.
yeah,
All right, shall we move on to the steel round number 2?
yeah, sure.
All right, let's move on to steel round 2. We've got Helix from Liseberg going up against Tutatis from Parc Asterix in France here in the second round of the Wardley group. So we've got some multi-launch coasters here going up against each other out of this bracket here off to the side where we had Helix, Terran, Tutatis, and Maverick. Let's take a look at what our splits were here. Hold on. I need to
Yeah,
scroll down. Need to
you
scroll
can
down.
say anything you want here. I have no idea.
You have no idea, right? Oh, interesting, right? In the poll, we asked how relevant the following factors to your selections were in the wood bracket. A lot of people say guessing.
Yeah.
A lot of people. So the two highest factors that people said are very relevant are the previous year's poll rankings,
Well, that,
right? And
yeah.
then below that is other people's rankings and opinions. And then the things that people say are somewhat relevant, guessing, personal rankings and opinions, and other unnamed factors. And
Ooh.
older poll rankings. So
I,
people say, yeah, I mostly look at last year's rankings, but after that, I use my own opinions and a
yeah.
little bit of guessing.
I'd love to see what the other unnamed reasons are. Do they use like mystical rocks or something to determine
Yeah, it's maybe they go
roll the
off of
dice, flip a coin?
yeah, maybe what they go off of Robbie Raptor's coin flipping over selecting abilities. Is that what we're going
Yeah.
with?
Well, man, at some point, you're just as well.
I mean, at some point, that's pretty much the same as guessing, right?
Yeah. Like, well, going off the better logo. That's isn't it, your aunt does that.
Well, yeah, that's right. Um, all right, so I finally scrolled down to the splits here. So all four of the rides on this half of the bracket did get selections to the Elite Eight, right? We've got Helix versus Tutatis, so those are the only two um, available. Between those two rides, those only accounted for 43% of the selections. 26%
Yeah.
picked Helix, 17% picked Tutatis to get to the Elite Eight. 4% picked Terran, but 52% had Maverick getting to the Elite Eight out of this group. So already more than half the people are wrong.
Well, that's not surprising here, to me. That's not at all surprising to me. But let's deal with what we have here, like real politic. So Helix and Tutatis, like I said, I have no idea. I would suspect Helix is the better ride, but the number of people wearing Tutatis shirts may
Would
say
suggest
otherwise. Um,
well, I'll be able to hopefully compare this opinion in a couple of months or two, but I don't have it yet.
yeah, we still won't know even after that happens.
Well, yeah, okay, that's a fair shout. Um, all right, do you have a prediction that because Tutatis has never been in the Thrilling 32, it's just getting the ridership right. It's been in the 40s before, but Helix was number 12 last year, so Helix has a pretty high bar to pass.
I'm gonna go with Helix just because all of the people where I'm gonna use one of these other unnamed reasons, and all the people looked who wore the Tutata shirts looked like kind of douchebaggy to me. So I'm gonna go with Helix.
Well, I don't know about Titatus, but Helix is one hell of a ride, and it is Helix moving
Okay,
on.
I told you they were douches.
You categorically you may be very correct there. All right, and maybe that's one reason that I'll just have to go get a Tutata shirt myself.
Well,
But
that would not that would track.
in any event, moving on to the next matchup here in the Wardley group, we've got Nemesis from Alton Towers going up against Steel Vengeance from Cedar Point, the defending champion. And wouldn't you know, Andy, what a surprise, 100% of the
Yeah.
submissions have Steel Vengeance going to the Elite Eight here. Big shock, right?
Yeah, there's some easy ones here in the steel one. This is one of them. So take that points as you can, unless something crazy happens, which I don't suspect it will.
Yep, take the points and hide. Steel Vengeance is moving on to the Elite Eight to take on Helix from Lisa Berg. Okay, let's get over to the Draves group where we had a bunch of RMCs and then one sort of oddball child here because we decided we throw a new ride in here.
Why not?
What's that?
I said why not?
Well, why not? Yes, we've got more than 8 RMCs, so we figured we split out a few of them and throw one wild card in here. Our first matchup is Iron Gwazi from Busch Gardens Tampa going up against Untamed from Wallaby Holland. Last year, Untamed number 4, Iron Gwazi number 7.
Mhm.
So, a historically close matchup. You know, uh, not I don't know. There's a lot of interesting things going on here between Iron Gwazi, Untamed, Voltron, Wildcat, Lightning Rod, Airy Force One. Those are all in this group, right? Those all got votes to get to uh, the Elite Eight, and obviously only two of them can. From this side, it was Untamed and Iron Gwazi. The split was Iron Gwazi 61%, Untamed 39%. So people are
Yeah.
actually leaning towards Iron Gwazi here, despite the
Not looking at
history
those
and
previous
despite the
rankings,
statistic I just gave you 4 minutes ago.
right? I see Iron Gwazi to me is one of those rides that gets hyped up so much on social media that people talk about Iron Gwazi all the time. But it's kind of like the beast factor here that they actually don't like the ride. They actually don't rank it as they talk about it. So all these people who love Iron Gwazi, I don't know if when they actually sit down and start ranking their rides, they forget about the ride or something. I don't know what happens, but it doesn't hold true in almost any poll you look at. It's not just this poll; it's almost every poll that you look at that Iron Gwazi performs
Yeah, Iron
well.
Gwazi doesn't win other polls either. Like it
No,
never
it's
has. Like
no, and people are
Untamed has.
but
Untamed's
people
one
are
that
talking
PBR
about Iron Gwazi like it's the best roller coaster in the world sometimes, and it's there is it doesn't come out in any single poll anywhere that it just doesn't bear fruit. And Untamed is a proven ride in this poll. So for people to go and pick Iron Gwazi here, I don't know, but I'm gonna go with Untamed because I'm not I like Iron Gwazi, but I'm not part of that group that thinks it's like this amazing roller coaster. I don't think it does all that much unique stuff that we haven't been on. If it's your first RMC, if you haven't been on things like Steel Vengeance, like I'm like, okay, cool, like that makes sense.
Hmm.
But like if you've been on other RMCs already, like I don't think Iron Gwazi does enough unique stuff to really put it into a top class. And I don't think it does anything better than any other ride already out there. That's just my opinion.
Yeah,
I've always said that.
y- yeah. To me, smart money is on Untamed here, but most of the money is on Iron Gwazi. So we'll see
Shockingly.
here. It is Untamed.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Elite Eight here. So lots of people going to be disappointed and
People getting
surprised.
creative here shouldn't be.
Well, if you were actually using last year's rankings, then you should have come up with the correct answer here. um, but anyways, moving on to the other side here, one matchup that you cannot use for the previous year's
No.
rankings for is this one because we've got Voltron going up against Airy Force One. The splits here we had, let's see here. All four, did I say all four of these rides on this side had votes for the Elite Eight? Voltron got 43%, Wildcat got 26%, Lightning Rod only 9%, Airy Force One got 22%. So between Airy Force and Voltron, that accounted for 65% here. Voltron actually the favored pick here. So the question is, with a ride like Airy Force One being as high as number 13 last year, could Voltron actually, what I think might actually be a little bit of an upset here?
I don't know because I feel like Voltron's one of those rides that people have been talking about a lot.
We know how
That
new rides do.
I've heard that Voltron was the shirt of the event at Hollywood Nights, so I was correct. I correctly picked that one.
He did.
um, so
He did. What do we
um,
hear? It was four of them in one day.
yeah, that was the report. I cannot speak on their douchebaggery though, so I don't know how that's going to play out. But in this one, looks to me like a better ride than Airy Force One, and we've been talking about new rides. And even though that might be mitigated a little bit by it being a ride from overseas, a new ride that maybe not everyone has gotten to yet,
Yeah.
I still think those first riders are going to rank it pretty highly. And Airy Force One sounds like a really good ride, but it sounds like one that maybe people aren't completely in love with. A really solid roller coaster. That's an amazing addition to that area, but maybe not a world beater per se, even though some say it is. So you're going to have some of those people. But I think we're going to find Airy Force One to probably ultimately fall in the lower single digits, maybe in the teens somewhere. I think when it ultimately settles into its final ranking position, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, Voltron again, hopefully one I'll get to ride here shortly. But Air Force One to me has its flaws, right? We've talked about how it kind of looks like, I mean, it's really an out and back with a couple of interesting barrel rolls in it and a couple of interesting inversions in it, but it's really more of an out and back. And if you like that sort of ride, that's great. But if you like variety and something different, then Voltron is probably the ride for you if you're going to be ranking the two next to each other, right? Because Voltron looks like it has a little bit of everything. It's got airtime hills, it's got inversions, it's got speed, it's got launches, it's got tight twist that's got all sorts of types of stuff. Whereas Airy Force One, I don't want to call it a one-dimensional ride, but it certainly is not as multi-dimensional as a ride like Voltron seems like it ought to be. And there's plenty of people who have been out to ride Voltron, and they're saying lots and lots of nice things about it. So, like I said here, the Voltron was the most popular pick, not quite 50%, but was the most popular pick out of these four to go to the Elite Eight. So, moving on to face Untamed in the Elite Eight will be Voltron Navara from Europa Park in Germany. So Voltron has knocked off both of last year's big RMC editions, Wildcats Revenge and Airy Force One. Um, Andy, we've seen this before. This like seeing the same movie again. We've seen it with Velocicoaster. We've seen it with Steel Vengeance. We've seen it with Fury 325. We've seen it with Outlaw Run. We've seen it with Lightning Rod. We've seen these new rides just have these first years where they go all the way and then never really do it again. Fury's a little bit of an exception there. But Velocicoaster knocked off Steel Vengeance for 1 year, right? I mean, could Voltron be a ride that could do that all of a sudden?
The only issue I have with Voltron is the issues I was talking about before. Is did enough people get out there to ride it?
Sure.
And I don't know if it's being talked about in those terms anyway. I've heard a lot of
Yeah,
people
maybe
say it's
not.
a really great ride. Is it the best ride in the world? I've not heard a lot of people. Um,
I haven't
Ironically
heard too many
enough,
people go that far. I've heard them
yeah,
say one of the best or like
yeah.
like an elite coaster, but I haven't heard many people say it's the best.
And ironically, I've heard more people say that Airy Force One is the best roller coaster in the world.
I have heard that, and those people are wrong.
They're wrong. So, so
Anyways,
ironically enough, that's it. So yeah, I don't think Voltron has that type of power. I do think Voltron is one that we are going to talk about
that
for a
it
very long
feels like
time.
one that's going to be here to stay. It
Yes.
feels like I mean not to transition into the next group, but it
Yeah.
feels like it's going to be a Taiga, a ride to happiness, that type of
Yeah.
ride that is going to be around for the foreseeable future in these
M-
discussions. And
Maybe not
all of a
so much.
sudden, the Thrilling 32 is becoming a top 10 list with 25 coasters in it.
Well, seriously, and maybe to move on to the next one here, maybe not a ride like Hyperia, which I don't feel has staying power at all.
Yeah, and I think just based on my own personal opinions of Hyperia, to me, I would expect Voltron to be much better than Hyperia. Not taking anything away from Hyperia, but I mean, the thing is, the way I described Hyperia, how it kind of rides a little bit like, I said it kind of rides a little bit like a cross between Expedition GeForce and Pantheon. I think that's kind of the comparison I made. If you took like the first drop and some of the airtime that you have on an Expedition GeForce and you threw in some of the inversions from Pantheon, that's kind of how Hyperia rides, which some people are going to be very happy about that comparison, and others, like yourself, are kind of thinking, I don't know that
Yeah.
that makes me think that it's that great of a ride.
Oh, no, no, I'm just like, okay. If
But
you're trying to sell me on something, that's not the way to do it.
that's not the way to do it. I understand that. Now what's interesting here is three of these four rides in this side here, Ejanika being the one that did not get any, but the other three all got picks to get to the Elite Eight here. Fury 325 carrying the load with 65%. Hyperia only got 13%, but Hyperion, which was knocked out by Fury 325, got the other
Oh
22%.
well, yeah.
So some people fell into the trap of the Hyperia versus Hyperion matchup that I was teasing out there. But it seems like most people are going to be on the Fury bandwagon here. Fury maybe just having a down year last year at number 10. Hyperion was number 9. It doesn't feel like even if it feels like Fury probably going to come back up I don't know, maybe because it was closed because of the whole support thing for a while. I don't know. Maybe
I
people,
don't
I
know.
don't know what people are thinking. Fury's better than number 10, I think. Um,
Yeah.
so, I don't think Hyperia is anywhere near that high.
Yeah, and there's some Fury hate out there now, and I think Fury's
Well,
going
it's
to
passe.
suffer.
It's 10 years old, Andy. We don't want to say that something
Well,
10 years old.
well, and that's the problem that people say, oh, it's 10 years old, so it must not be good anymore. That obviously things that they build now have to be better. That's the world that we live in, and that's what I've kind of been fighting against for so long in this poll. Is that there's a balance between the newness factor that I understand people are going to take into heart with, but there's also the I'm going to forget really good rides, and we talked about that in the selection show how some really fantastic roller coasters aren't even in the 32 anymore. Whereas we have some junk that I think is just newer in the 32, and it's just here because they're newer. And I don't. That's how people rank though. It's what have you done for me lately? And I think it's
Yeah.
something that we all need to reflect upon as we make our top lists of 50 or
And
100 or whatever you do. That it's not just about
and
what you wrote
look,
recently.
yeah, and look, I mean, I want new roller coasters to be better. I want
Would
us to
love them to
continue.
be.
We would love for ever. You say it all the time. When a park builds a new coaster, if you're not trying to build the best possible coaster you can, or the best coaster for, I understand when you're building a family coaster, you're not trying to build a
Yeah.
steel Vengeance, right? There's certain things, there's certain situations where you're not trying to build the best roller coaster in the world, right? But when you're building a new ride like Hyperia, like Voltron, like Wildcat's Revenge, like Airy Force One, like Ride to Happiness, like Fly, like Velocicoaster, you should be trying to build the best coaster in your park, the best coaster that you possibly can. And I want other parks to be doing that. I understand that something like Siren's Curse that might not be the best roller coaster in the world, but we have a gimmick factor, right? We should be trying to build the best coaster we can on the back end of that gimmick, right? And I understand that there's a
Yeah.
little bit of politics that go along with
Well, because you
Siren's
want the
Curse.
dive coasters and you want this and you have this plot of land and you have this budget and
You
all
should
that
be
stuff.
building the best dive coaster that
Yeah.
you possibly can. You should be building the best inverted coaster that you possibly can.
And to be honest with you, that's where I kind of had issue with Iron Menace because I didn't think Iron Menace at Dorney. People were hyping that right up after it opened and was like, oh, this is the best. And I didn't feel that way at all. I didn't feel that it came
No,
close to any of the other dive coasters I've been on.
it's
Um,
certainly not as good as the bigger ones.
no, no, no,
If you
no,
want to
not
put
at
it, if
all.
you want to put it in the discussion with rides like, Dr. Diabolical and Emperor and even Baron 1898, you want to put it in a discussion with those smaller, like 150-foot ones. I'm fine with that, but it's not Griffin, it's not Sheikra, it's not
No.
Yukon, it's not Valraven, it's not as good as those bigger ones.
And I'm hoping Rock Sasha is like it has more elements on it. It looks like so. I don't know. I haven't been on it yet. I haven't been out there yet. But it's just like you're right that you should be trying to build the best roller coaster possible. And when you're building something new, something big, that should be your goal every time. And obviously there's limitations and other issues that might prevent you from doing that.
Yeah.
But I just feel like recently, at least in America, that we've not even tried. We've not even tried to build the best roller
Yeah.
coaster.
And,
Well,
and I
I can't say that because we're going to be looking at Velocicoaster here in a moment.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
and then we
and
have
again, I want new coasters to be better than the ones that are 10, 15, 20 years old. But
yes,
just because we want them to be doesn't mean that we
they
have to
are.
make them be if they're not.
Exactly, and that's where I exactly my point that when people were hyping up Iron Menace and people hyping up Airy Force One, there's no reason to walk into a place and say this is the best ride you've ever been on just simply because you're the first one there. It looks
Iron
silly.
Menace is not better than Sheikra or Griffin
No,
because it opened 20 years later. It would be
no.
great if it was. It's not.
It's not. It's not at all. And that's part of the issues with some of these with this stuff is is it just people overhyping things, people pretending as if things are better. And that's why I don't take a lot of the opinions of people that show up to these places until I see a bunch of people do it, until I see people that I trust do it, until I do it myself. And until I see those things happen, I don't buy any of this crap that they're trying to sell me.
It would be great if Outlaw Run and Lightning Rod and Goliath were better than Voyage. They're not.
They're not. They're just not.
They're
It's just
not.
and,
They're
and, and
not.
and we say it in the opening to this that we're looking for the best rides out there to find the one that stands out above the rest. And to be honest, I'm sitting here debating if I'm going
Sometimes
to go
it's been there for 20 years for you.
exactly. I'm debating if I'm going to go to the opening of Siren's Curse, and I think it's an amazing ride. And I'm looking at it: is it worth the $500 with between travel and hotels and tickets and fundraising events? Is it worth all that money? And I'm kind of like saying no.
Yeah,
it
no,
might
that's
not be.
exactly right.
So and it's just like you get to the point of you have Steel Vengeance there. Anything else is going to be, it's hard to top Steel Vengeance. It just is. It's hard to top it. And people are going to try, but I don't know if it can be done.
Right. And Hyperia is an example of a ride that it'd be great if it was better than Fury 325. It's not. Fury 325 is moving on to the Elite Eight.
That's correct, by the way.
To finally bury the hatchet here. So we've got to get an opponent for Fury 325. And again, another one of these debates. We got two new rides that, in my opinion, are two of the best rides in the world that have not been around that long. We've got Jurassic World Velocicoaster, a former champion, last year's number 5 coaster, going up against last year's number 3 coaster, Taiga from Linnamaki, hashtag Church of Taiga.
Wait, so what was Velocicoaster last year? 3?
Number dropped to number 5 last year.
5, and Taiga was what?
3.
Oh,
our top 5 last year was Vengeance, Zadra, Taiga, Untamed, Velocicoaster, and all 5 of those coasters were above 99%. So here are the points. So your order was Vengeance, Zadra, Taiga, Untamed, Velocicoaster. Vengeance was 99.47. Zadra was 99.22. Okay. Taiga was 99.0949. Untamed was 99.0944. We had to go out to the 6th decimal place to put Taiga at 3 over Untamed. And then so essentially a virtual tie between 99.09 and 99.09. Velocicoaster was a canyon away at 99.07. So those 3 rides were really kind of in a 3-way tie for 3rd, if you want to really look at, because there was a gap between 2nd and 3rd, and then 6th, which was Ride to Happiness, was 98.93. But Taiga, Untamed, and Velocicoaster are essentially a bucket that was tied for 3rd last year, and it came down to like the 4th, 5th, 6th decimal place to decide it. So you've got 2 of those rides going up against each other here.
Well, and I will say,
here's rankings. The winner of this one probably going to the Final 4 if nothing else changes with Fury.
You would think so. I would argue that Velocicoaster is not a perfect coaster. Velocicoaster has a lot of great moments on it. The theming on it's great. Some of the elements are great, but there's some stuff on it that I'm just like, oh, okay, that just happened. So I don't believe Velocicoaster is the perfect ride, even though everyone talks about it. I still think Steel Vengeance is far better. You want to talk about canyons? I think Steel Vengeance is far better than Velocicoaster. And I even might say I think Maverick's a little bit better than Velocicoaster. I'm not going to go up. I don't know how I ranked them this year.
There's plenty of people who think that.
I think Maverick's pacing is so much better than Velocicoaster's pacing. I think some of the elements on Velocicoaster are much more outstanding.
Alex Baker.
Well, I think some of them are much more outstanding on Velocicoaster. They has the bigger stuff is better. The stuff that Velocicoaster does great is better than anything on Maverick. But I think as a whole, Maverick has better pacing and better elements. and better stuff to do.
And that's how
But
I feel about Taiga. I said after getting off Taiga, I said if you just take the roller coaster, Taiga is the better layout, the better
yeah,
overall coaster. The thing that makes Velocicoaster Velocicoaster, and the thing that makes it over the top special is the theme, is the story, is the queue, things beyond the ride, right?
yeah,
And Taiga's in a wonderful location. It's got a really nice station. It's got some nice theming around it. If you're just looking at the pure roller coaster, Taiga to me felt like I think I might have even said this at the time. Taiga to me felt like we took Maverick and we said we're gonna fix the things that weren't quite perfect with
yeah,
Maverick. We've got the lap bars, we've got like the Velocicoaster style restraints, right? You've got the
yeah.
lap bars, you don't have the shoulder harness. We're gonna have the top hat, right? We're gonna have the quick barrel roll at the end of the ride. We've got some of our small airtime hills. We've got some of the crossover airtime hills. There is a lot of Maverick in Taiga.
Yeah. Which and I've looked at videos of it and it looks like a legit ride. So either ride in this case I think is an acceptable winner. I don't know which way it's gonna go. I'm still a little surprised if Velocicoaster was the fifth in that group. Um but I don't know. I want to say if I had to say I would say Taiga.
Velocicoaster was the favorite, 65%. Only 26 going with Taiga, despite last year's results.
So
And
they're saying that Tiger was a 1 year over
that's what they're
emphasis.
saying here. And
Yeah.
Ride to Happiness got the other 9%. So some people thought Ride to Happiness would actually get by Taiga altogether, despite last year's. It's funny people put last year's rankings as their number one factor, and yet we have people going against last year's rankings left and right.
We're
So
just
I,
not
I
doing
think
any of that today.
I think people, when they do the Qualtrics form, I think they need to be a little bit more honest with themselves that they're guessing a little bit more than they want to admit,
Yes.
because folks seem to be guessing an awful lot here. If
Well,
you ask me, but that's just one man's opinion. Um,
it would bear out on what we've been seeing. So,
yeah. So moving on to face Fury 325 in the Elite Eight, it is Jurassic World
oh,
Velocicoaster. So a little bit of an upset, a little bit of a shifty shift going on from last year's rankings.
so it
So
is a 1 year thing. So I wonder where that's going to fall now. That's the big
well,
question.
so yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Taiga's actually falling here, or if Velocicoaster comes back up, if it's a little bit of both, and if it is a fall, how much of a fall. It's not inconceivable to think that Velocicoaster, Taiga, and Untamed might be in that same group of three, and they just shuffle
Yeah.
with just like one or two votes, and they could be 3-4, they could be 4-5. It's really interesting to see how that's gonna play out. So we'll have Fury going up against Velocicoaster, two former champions going up against each other in the Elite Eight. We've got to finish up the Steel group here. We've got two left. And two that at least history says aren't going to be terribly difficult here. We've got
No.
Skyrock from Hershey Park going up against last year's runner-up in Zadra from Energylandia. These were the only two rides out of this side that were selected to go to the Elite Eight. Zadra got 91% of the votes. Skyrush actually got 9% of people picking it to come out of this side to go to the Elite Eight. I would like to understand what those people have lit up and smoked. But I mean, any chance Zadra goes down here?
No, even though I'm not sold on Zadra, to be honest with you, that should come as no surprise to anyone who watches this program. I don't think that this is an
No,
issue
it's
here.
not.
Yeah, Zadra's going to win this.
Yeah, it is Zadra. Zadra moves on to the Elite Eight here, knocks off Skyrush. Our final matchup in the Tumor group here, we've got X2 from Six Flags Magic Mountain going up against Conda from Wallaby, Belgium. Conda doing very, very well the last 2 years. Conda is another one of those rides that seems like it is here to stay. Certainly in the Thrilling 32 and then the top half. Last year, Conda was 11. Last year, X2 was number 18. So this is interesting. But as we mentioned in the first round, last year, Expedition G-Force was number 8. Conda was 11. We already know Conda has beaten Expedition G-Force this year. So it would appear that Conda has, gone up, or Expedition G-Force has fallen to some degree. So it does appear that there's some shuffling going on here. So Conda could certainly be higher than last year's 11. All four of the rides in this group getting votes to go to the Elite Eight. 4% going with Fly, 9% going with X2, 26% going with Conda. The other 61% went with Expedition G-Force, which is out of contention here. So already this bracket is not looking very healthy for most folks.
Well, if ever there was a year for X2 to make a run, this would be it here, wouldn't it? With G-Force
Feels
going
like it.
down. I just don't know though. Conda is one of those rides that people tend to really, really enjoy, and X2 is one of those that you either love it or you hate it. So I've always loved it. I've always thought X2 is criminally underranked,
Mhm.
and I don't think that's going to change here.
Yeah, I've always been a big X2 fan myself. Conda to me looks like a more refined version of Expedition G-Force. It's often been described that way. So if that is indeed what Conda actually is, I think it's very deserving of being high up in the ranks. But I guess it's not a terrible surprise. It is Conda moving on to the Elite Eight here. So we will have Conda from Wallaby, Belgium, going up against Zadra from Energylandia in the Elite Eight of this group here.
Yeah, that doesn't that none of this really shocks me at this point. Maybe early on that was a little bit hard to predict, but
Once you've seen it beat G-Force, it's like,
yeah,
okay, Conda's going to win that one,
yeah,
probably.
exactly. Like it kind of unfolds, and it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. So why don't we figure out who our final four coasters are now? Let's jump back over to the wood side here. We've got the Cobb group here. Let's see. Based on select the four wood coasters. All right. So we've got our matchup here is Gold Striker versus El Toro. We had Gold Striker getting 17%. Ghost Rider getting 13% and 71% going for El Toro here. So most people picking El Toro to go to the final four here, despite all of the other carnage that went on. Last year again, we
Yeah.
we talked about last year's rankings. El Toro was 5, Gold Striker was 6. So it's
Mm.
time to choose which one do you think is higher this year?
To me, I'm not a big fan of either of these two rides.
I know you're not.
So like I'm not going to sit here and sing the praises of either one of them. Personally, I have El Toro higher, and El Toro higher has been higher in this poll. Um, I would have to go with El Toro. I think I've just based on my personal
Well,
history.
one Mike Flynn would say Danny Miller put Gold Striker up against El Toro so it could get to the final four. Take that, Mike Flynn. El Toro beats Gold Striker. El Toro to the final four in this
Oh,
year's Thrilling
okay.
32.
Interesting. Interesting enough. Mike Flynn.
You he thought, he
He
thought, he thought
he thought there were shenanigans afoot, and there were
he
not.
thought there was bias and shenanigans. None here this year.
No, bias is not something we do here at CoasterNet.
No, of course not. And to further reiterate that fact, in the Schmeck group, I put my top two wood coasters up against each other. Voyage from Holiday World and Phoenix from Knoebels. So I put my top two personal wood coasters here, knowing that 100% of the people picked Voyage to go to the final four.
Yeah.
And no big surprise, it is Voyage going to the final four. So Phoenix does not get to the final four once again. So we'll have Voyage versus El Toro in our final four, which, shades of 2006. You're right. The
Wow.
2006 debate of which
Yeah.
coaster is better, Voyage or El Toro.
Are people still arguing that? Because I
I
can't
think
imagine
people
that they
still
are.
argue that, and we're gonna argue it one more time here in
Jeff
this year's.
Goodman might be the last one arguing that.
He might be. All right, let's move on. We've got Wildfire from Colmorden going up against Renegade from Valley Fair. 92% picking Wildfire to win this one, to
Yeah.
go to the Final Four out of this group. The other 8% picked Mystic Timbers. Nobody had
Oh, there you
Renegade,
go.
as we talked about, last time, as we talked about earlier in the show. Nobody had Renegade even winning that matchup. The only people who did select Renegade to win in the first round had Balder beating it in the second round. So, already nobody's got Renegade here. So Renegade moving on would be a huge upset.
Yeah.
But it would be a huge upset. Renegade was 11 last year. Wildfire was the decisive runner-up. So I don't know. Any shocks coming here?
No, 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 no.
No, of course not. It is Wildfire moving on to the final four out of the Keenan group. So we've got El Toro versus Voyage. We've got Wildfire versus the winner of Troy from Toverland and Outlaw Run from Silver Dollar City. Troy is not a ride that we have often talked about in the Thrilling 32. It seems to like win a matchup and then not go any further.
Yeah.
I want to say, I'd have to go back and fact check this, but I want to say it might be the first time that we've got Troy in an Elite Eight matchup with a chance to go to the Final Four. I don't know that it's ever actually gone this far.
I don't feel like it has because it's one that I don't like. It's always been around. It's one of those that's always been around. But like you
Yeah.
said, we never even talk about it because it doesn't go very far. So if you don't talk about it in that first show, usually it's not one to discuss later on. I don't know. I've never been on it. Anything to say about it?
Well, Troy is interesting because it's near other rides like Wodan and Joris and the Drock, and it's kind of in between those. It's not quite as big. Um, it's not quite as big as like a Wodan. It's looks a lot like Gold Striker, but
Mhm.
most of the drops on Troy are not straight drops. Like Gold Striker, you go up into a turn and then
Yeah.
you've got a straight drop before you hit another turn. Whereas the drops on Troy are sweeping turn
Mhm.
drops. So you might think your logic is, oh, Troy's got a lot of big drops. I want to sit in the back for the yank, right? But most on of the drops on Troy are not straight drops.
Yeah.
So you don't get a lot of yank. It's twisting, curving drops. So I actually found Troy to be better in the front seat because a lot of the up the hills are crests into
Yeah.
turns like your typical GCI. So I actually found Troy to be more enjoyable in the front because there was actually a lot more airtime there because a lot of the drops don't have yank because they're curved drops. So it's a little bit difficult to compare. My expectations were a little out of whack because I kind of saw a ride that looked a lot like Gold Striker, but in reality, they ride very, very different. And you know that I'm a big Gold Striker fan.
Yeah.
So when you ride different from Gold Striker, to me, that's not quite as good.
Yeah.
Um, to me, Outlaw Run is the pick here.
For sure.
Most people going with Outlaw Run, 71%. Most of the other people actually went with Lightning Rod. So they had that one wrong. But one lowly person is hanging on to the hope of Troy going to the Final Four here.
No, thank you.
We're
I'm
not naming any names. Uh, but it is Outlaw Run moving on to the final four out of the Bill group here. So Troy has a nice run, but we've got a very, a very predictable, I will say, final four, but also a very interesting one because we've got El Toro versus Voyage, we've got the Battle of 2004, and we've got Wildfire versus Outlaw Run, the debate of the RMCs once again. So,
Well, it was a bloodbath to get to this point, but once we got to this point to pick the final four, I think it was pretty obvious. It
yeah.
was just getting to this point of picking those rides correctly, as we saw throughout the road here.
Yeah, I think so. All right, so we'll have El Toro going up against Voyage, and we'll have Wildfire going up against Outlaw Run in our final four coming up next time. All right, let's wrap this up here with our four steel final four coasters. We've got Helix from Lisaberg going up against Steel Vengeance from Cedar Point. 100% of the people picking Steel Vengeance to come out of this group, and 100% of the people are correct. Steel Vengeance from Cedar Point going to the final four once again, on its way to trying to defend its title once again. Now, we get to the Draves group where we've got Untamed from Wallaby Holland going up against Voltron from Europa Park. So we've got last year's number four ride going up against this new kid on the block. It's time to decide how serious we are about Voltron. And again, this is weird. This is weird because again, I don't know what people were doing here. So one person each picked Airy Force and Wildcat's Revenge to get to the final four out of this group. 17% went with Untamed, 22% went with Voltrons. That leaves over 50% remaining unaccounted for. Those are the people who went with Iron Gwazi.
Well,
So
I we've already spoken on that, so I will not
we
revisit.
have. We have. So between this, a slight edge to Voltron, but the remaining people were really split on this one with which way to go. So, Andy, which way do you go on this?
This is a coin toss. This is a coin toss that I almost want to give the edge to Voltron because of the newness factor and this poll and how new rides tend to rank a little bit higher. And Untamed kind of like flip-flopping a little bit in that top five.
Just a
The
little bit.
question is Voltron a top five ride? Like that's and if you feel if Voltron is a top five ride, then this is a truly a coin flip. If you don't feel Voltron's a top five ride, then obviously Untamed is your
You've
is your
got good
choice.
enough ammunition to go with
Yeah,
Untamed in that
yeah,
situation.
for sure.
Um,
I'm gonna go with
yeah.
Voltron. I'm gonna go on a limb and say,
Okay.
based on the t-shirts, it is a top
Based on
five
the
ride.
t-shirts, you're going with That's okay. That's I
Yeah,
mean, what else do you have to go on,
I
really?
have nothing. I don't even know if I watched the POV.
Well, there you go. I've been avoiding them myself.
Yeah, I tried to. I
Yeah,
don't want to know. Like, and I have no plans on going to Europe. But it's kind of like I watch some stuff every now and then. But yeah, I try to keep the mystery out there.
yeah. All right. Moving on to the final four to face Steel Vengeance in the semifinals is Voltron from
Oh,
Europa Park. So, Andy, Voltron continues
so that
the
is a
new
top
coaster
five
run.
right then.
Okay. So now, I mean, we'll talk about this more next time. But let's start thinking. Voltron now goes up against Steel Vengeance, right? Is this another Velocicoaster
Oh,
coming?
Jesus. I don't know. Maybe I don't know at this point. Like I don't
Okay.
like I've seen, but I go back to what I said before. I don't see enough people saying that Voltron's the best ride in the world.
Yeah.
So I don't see that a whole lot. There's probably people out there that say that, which I don't know if they would be wrong, but I don't see enough of it to beat Steel Vengeance. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, that's yeah. Let's mill on that here until
Yeah,
we get to our
that's
next
what we
time
have a
out.
lot of time in the next show to reveal that one. So,
We do. We do. All right. We got the mock group here. We've got Fury 325 going up against Jurassic World Velocicoaster. Velocicoaster last year's number
hmm.
5, Fury last year's number 10. Both former champions. Nobody really buying into Fury 325 here. Just 4% of the people thinking Fury coming out of this group. 9% thought Ride to Happiness. 26% thought Taiga. 61% thought Jurassic World Velocicoaster was the pick as the final four coaster out of this group. And honestly, based on the rides that it's beaten, and you start doing the math, Velocicoaster, knowing that it's higher than both Ride to Happiness and Taiga, you probably feel a little better that it might be higher than Fury here.
Well, I would think so. Fury's made that drop, and I don't know once you make that drop with a B&M coaster, I don't know if Fury's ever going to climb that mountain again,
You don't come all
especially
the way back.
especially not to beat Velocicoaster, not with the hype that Velocicoaster has surrounding it. Even if Velocicoaster drops, I still don't think it drops to
It got too
Fury's.
much too quickly. I think it got too many votes too quickly
Yes,
to come all
yes.
the way back down. It is Velocicoaster moving on to the final four. So we've got one more coaster to decide. It's last year's runner-up, Zadra from Energylandia in Poland, going up against Conda from Wallaby, Belgium, last year's number 11. So on paper, again, another mismatch here, but again, we know Conda has moved back up. So the question is, has Conda moved up? Has Zadra come back down? Or is Zadra sustaining towards the top of that list, possibly at number 2?
I feel that Zadra is going to be at the top again. Zadra was so close to number one last year. Conda just isn't in that same discussion. I don't
It
feel like
doesn't feel like it.
I've
It
actually
doesn't feel
watched
like
POVs of Zadra in the past, and like I said, I'm just not sold on that ride. It looks like a fantastic roller coaster. Do not get me wrong. It looks like a top five roller coaster. Um,
it. It is
is it better than Velocicoaster? Is it better than Untamed? Maybe. I don't know.
hard to
Is it
say.
better than Vengeance? Probably not in my mind. Um, but it's gonna be Conda here, right? There's no question.
You mean Zadra?
Zadra's gonna beat Conda. That's what I said.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you said it's going to be Conda, or you said it's going to beat Conda. I
It's
thought you
going
said
to
it's.
beat Conda.
Okay. I didn't hear the
Beat
T at the end of that.
Conda.
You
Yes,
scared me for a
beat.
moment there. Okay, I was like, we need to have your head examined.
Yeah. It's gonna beat
Yeah,
Conda. I had to get my headings exactly. Like what the hell?
yeah. It is Zadra moving on to the final four here. It knocks off Conda, and again, that was a popular pick, right?
Yeah.
Zadra getting most of the picks. A couple other rides getting a few picks at G-Force, Fly, Skyrush. Actually none from Conda, which was interesting. So our Steel Final Four next time out will be Steel Vengeance from Cedar
Woo!
Point against Voltron from
Woo!
Europa Park, and we've got Jurassic World Velocicoaster from Universal's Islands
Oh
of Adventure
God.
going up against Zadra from Energylandia. So this Steel Final Four is going to be very exciting.
That's a final four. That's a final.
That
That's
that
a final
that
four.
looks like a very good Final Four.
That looks like a
It,
final four for the
that's a
ages.
Final Four. That it really
So
does.
yeah,
Any final thoughts here? We're up against the gun here in about 2 minutes. Thanks, Zoom.
yeah.
Any final
Thanks,
thoughts
Zoom.
here on our Final Fours?
Not a whole lot. I think the wood one seems very clear now. And the wood one's always the question marks have pretty much ended, I think, with that side.
There's some utilitarian work to be done in the wood
Yes.
bracket before you get to the end.
But this steel final four might be one of the biggest question marks we've ever seen with just with Voltron and not knowing where that's coming from, with Zadra and the European bias that we've seen in this poll, with Velocicoaster
Done
and
it
the love
before.
that that ride has had. It's just this is all over the place right now. So it's
It
anybody
really is.
anything can happen here in the thrilling 32.
Yes. Yes, gonna be exciting.
So, as always, thank you for joining us here on the Thrilling 32. I'm, of course, Andrew Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois.
Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York.
Right on, right, Warriors.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.